Hello, good evening and welcome to another program on Law and Order, a program that touches upon an important area of law for you each week and we discuss with an expert. Now, you all heard the term rape and most of us know it's a criminal offense. This is an area which we have not delved into the legality and how it works in Sri Lanka. So for this purpose, I thought I will invite in studio today a specialist experienced attorney in this area, and my guest to discuss this matter today is President's Counsel Prasabthalal Alwis. Prasabthalal Alwis is also a lecturer in criminal law in the University of Colombo Faculty of Law. Prashant, thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule and coming. How are you doing today?
All right.
You're doing good.
Good,
right.
Yes.
What is rape?
Yes.
Is my starting question.
Yes.
I know it's a broad question.
Chanakya,
how could you answer
a
that?
very interesting area because that's an offense that is only limited to accused are all basically men. Men against women. Now, if you take the entire scope of the penal code, it's like hurt, murder. There is no gender bias. There is no gender basis. But here it is a case where there is a man who is raping a woman. And that's how our section reads. So it's basically, and the other difference is, normally in other criminal law, we look at the mental element, or we call it in legal terms mens rea, of the accused, whether he had the intention to kill, whether he had the intention or knowledge to rob or steal, everything. But here it is a most crucial factor is what is the mindset of the victim. Good example, say I want to rape a girl, but if she likes it, well then it is not rape. Though my intention is to rape, she likes it, that's not rape. So it's a very unique section, unique law when you compare with the other penal code offences, Chanakya.
Okay, what is the law? We'll go into detail on other area, but what is the law that is governing rape in Sri Lanka?
It's completely penal code. That's a general law that governs major crimes, we call it. Major crimes, not the offences. Offences you find in the traffic laws, even with mosquitoes or whatever you have offences. But here these we call crimes, aparada in singular. Now that crimes is always in the penal code. And this is offences against person, rape.
Right. The definition of rape, is it what you mentioned when I asked you what is rape, or is the legal definition different?
Legal definition is very clear. We have to be technical because with it is the introduction of the male sexual organ, or I would put it, the exact legal term is penetration. So when you penetrate the vagina of a girl or a lady by a man with his male organ, that is rape. Not the finger, not any other thing, but the male organ you penetrate, and that's what you call rape. So that's a technical definition for rape.
Right. Now, when a person, obviously a lady, who considers herself a victim, what is the process of complaining, and from the complaint to the police, how does this is processed through? How does it work?
Moment there is a offense committed on you, that is rape, the girl or the lady must first immediately rush to the police.
Right.
Because if there is a delay, because as I said before, there is a consent issue. So more you delay, the consent factor will come into play.
Right.
Because immediately if you make a prompt complaint, Chanakya, that means it is against your wish, it is against your will, it is against your consent. That is obvious. But the more you delay, then your consent issue will become an issue. So therefore, it is the most important thing for a victim is to make a prompt complaint to the police. But generally, our Sri Lanka is a very conservative culture. Say, I may report to a girl, may report to a parent. Parent might think of the social stigma and may delay the process. But that will be considered, of course. But the first and foremost thing to do is to make the complaint to the police, because the police will immediately record the statement of the girl and take her to the judicial medical officer.
Right.
Now that's vital.
Right.
Because slight abrasion, little marks on your body makes that case strong, makes that case that is stronger as far as consent is concerned. So that is vital. So it is therefore immediately you will be taken to the doctor, and that's the first step. And your clothing will be taken by the as productions by the police. Now that's also is vital. So the doctor will examine you and take the short history from you, how it happened, and then of course accused will be arrested. If the police believes that there was without consent and there is rape, the immediate thing would be arrest of the accused, and then the process will start.
Okay, you said a prompt complaint has to be made.
Absolutely.
Now, what is a normal person who's watching us or whatever should know to tell that? Is it just what that lady feels to sell, this is what happened to me, is enough? Or does that lady bound to give certain things that assist the police?
Absolutely.
What are those?
It has to have from the beginning to the end. Sadly, this is the sad part of it. A girl has to narrate every detail of what happened.
Right.
Now, normally we have sex in a room, but unfortunately here, the girl or the victim who is raped has to narrate the entire statement to the police. But we have Women's Bureau now in the police.
Right.
So always there will be a woman, lady officer, who will record the statements.
Right.
So she is at ease, of course, and therefore she is basically can narrate this. But imagine if it is in the night and there is no legal lady officer, then of course you have to narrate that to the man. So it is very important and crucially important that you narrate it verbatim, exact incident of what took place to the end. And if you know the accused, you must say that. Because identity of the accused is the most crucial thing in a criminal case, Chanakya.
Right. You said you had to rush to the police as fast as possible.
Yes.
What if it happened in the night, and if that person goes next day, is that sufficient?
That's fine. Early morning?
Early morning is sufficient.
That's more than enough.
Yeah, but at the same time, what if the person doesn't know? Now, we say a rape can happen generally by somebody abducting someone.
Yes.
They're going in a taxi or going on a road,
Sure.
or unknown person.
Absolutely.
Then what do? You only know that you were forced to have sex with a man whom you don't know the color of or telephone number or anything. Absolutely. Then how does the police proceed from the complaint?
Obviously, the girl will narrate. Girl say a vehicle number may be given. Now its CCTV cameras are on. So the investigation of a normal offence will commence. And then the crucial one is, Chanakya, is that if you do not identify the person by name, and if he is not acquaintance of you, if we do not know the name, then there will be a parade, identification parade. Moment he is arrested with an equal number, about 7 members to 1, there will be a parade. That means you have to go in and then point out the exact person who raped you. So that would be the most important, vital one. If this attacker is unknown, the identification parade.
Right. What happens at the judicial medical officer's place? What evidence is taken at the examination of the...
That's again, the doctor will of course has to look at the vagina or the private, and that is a little embarrassing sometimes because judicial medical officer may be a man. So again, there is a bit of a trauma on a victim, but that is the fact we have to encounter with, and they will first look at the vagina, whether she is a virgin and whether she has lost the virginity, and look at those aspects first, and then look at the entire body to see whether there are any marks, say struggle marks, and that would be the vital one there. But I must stress the 1995 because our law says very categorically you need corroboration. But now in 1995 amendment, which is the amendment from the good old days, the penal code came into being, 1995, made a significant change in the law of rape. There they said for corroboration, medical evidence is not a must. So now it's more favorable to a victim. Because earlier it was a must.
Why did they do that amendment?
Yeah, because earlier sadly...
that amendment.
Yeah, because earlier sadly, the law was very strict and very straightforward, and you had to look for corroboration.
Right.
That means a girl had to be and should be corroborated, not anymore.
Corroborated means with medical evidence.
Exactly, mostly by the, and they were insisting on the body struggle marks. So in a conservative society of Sri Lanka, like fear and she would have been a very docile victim. Of course, you can't find injury. So that was a bit disadvantageous to the girl, the law before 1995.
That's why they amended. So don't you think the reverse is that is little unfair towards the suspect or the accused? Because you can just make a complaint, no medical evidence. Sure. No medical evidence at all, right?
No, medical evidence anyway will be taken.
Yes. Right. Medical is taken.
It is a must and a mandatory that a judicial medical officer must look at it. What I'm talking of, I'm stressing is the injuries on your body. Yeah.
That is what you mean.
Earlier it was mandatory to have injuries and they were looking for it, not anymore after 1995.
Okay. Right. So what happens afterwards? It goes to the magistrate's courts.
Yes.
And then the prosecutor. What is the prosecutor has to prove in a rape case to put the victim.
Yes. Now, very interestingly, this all rape cases,
Yes.
unlike any other sexual harassment cases,
Yes.
would end up in the High Court, and that means Attorney General's Department that you and I worked. That's where you indict. So it is a very high offence, and it is in the High Court. So the High Court prosecutor will prosecute. You don't. That means a state counsel generally, or a senior state counsel, due to the gravity of the case, will prosecute your case. But the sad part is our customs, you know, Chanakya, that we cannot talk to the victim.
Right.
State counsel has to be impartial. So it's a bit of embarrassing in a rape case where you will find there is possibly a young state counsel, a lead in the evidence, whom we had never met before. So it is a bit tough. I found as a state counsel prosecuting for 7 years, a very difficult thing was as a young state counsel who had never spoken to this girl, leading the girl evidence verbatim from the incident to the end. And you have to prove the penetration. Now that was the most difficult thing to happen. In a village girl who would like to come up and say, you inserted the male organ to my vagina. Now that was a most difficult thing that I encountered as a state counsel.
Right. So what is the most important thing to prove? Is only that, or are there other elements needed
Two
to be
things.
proved?
First is penetration is a must, because otherwise it would be grave sexual abuse. There is a new offence called grave sexual abuse, which is outside the vagina. You use your body part on any other part of the any person for that matter. That's not only women. Grave sexual abuse is even a man to man, woman to woman, it can be. So it's wide. It's not gender bias as it is. So we have grave sexual abuse. We have sexual harassment under section 345. But rape, you must penetrate. So that's, and then it has to be without the consent of the girl or the lady.
How does the prosecutor prove without the consent? How does that work?
Very interestingly, they will look at, say, if there was definitely an affair before, then there is no consent. Basically, consent can be inferred.
Right.
Because there was a strong romance and a love and all that. But imagine if it is like unknown person, then of course it is obvious.
Yes.
And the time of the incident. Of course, you will always look at the relationship between them. And that would be the vital factor. And the delay, as I said before, would be very important key element. Why did you delay? Would be the question that we would pose.
Right. Now, there are two, when you said the relationship is concerned, I have seen in other countries, especially in the States, that there's a thing called date rape.
Yes.
There's a thing called marital rape in other countries.
Certainly.
Now, date rape, as from the media and all that, the cases I learned is that is, you're still in a relationship, but you didn't want to have a sexual relationship in that particular time. So, but the man forced himself onto the lady, and the lady went and complained in rape. Absolutely. Is this kind of a thing accepted in Sri Lanka? One, and what about marital rape? Is marital rape recognized in Sri Lanka? If so, how does it happen?
Yeah, foremost, let me take the first question.
First question, yeah.
We'll take an example of a prostitute. Now, I hire a prostitute. Now, that's by consent.
Yes.
Right? So, it can't be rape.
Yeah.
But imagine, I want to have it more than the agreed time. Then she always has a right to refuse. She say, I take another friend of mine. And she refuses. And that is rape. Second one is rape. So, I mean, even a prostitute, you can't rape without the consent.
Right.
Though we had disagreement. Now, let us get to the marital rape.
Yes.
That's an interesting area which came into being in 1995. Sri Lanka law, as well as most of the countries, man can rape his wife.
That means, or if you put it in other words, married man
can rape
have
his
sex
wife.
with his wife without her consent, and it is not rape.
Not rape.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now that is because they say it's a right of a man to have sex with his wife.
Right.
So good example would be in a divorce matter. If a woman or a man refused to have sex, that would be malicious desertion. I mean, that would be a clear ground
for divorce. Yes.
Likewise, therefore, in most of the cultures, especially some cultures are much more stringent, and they believe that a man is of absolute right to have sex as a, she's like a slave. But I'm not going even that far. Even a normal relationship of a man and a woman, man has a right to rape. But 95, they said, okay, they made a little leverage. They said, if you are judicially separated from your husband, then he can't. Now, divorce, before divorce, what is judicially separated? You have to go to courts and get a declaration that you are separated. Now, hardly it happens in this country. It never happens that way.
Yeah.
So this is only just a statement to say we are just looking at the grievance of a married woman, but it has not practically carried any benefit to the married woman.
Yeah, but when you are in a marriage, my question is that when you are in a marriage, if you man can still force himself on the woman?
Absolutely,
No issue.
any time of the day, any time.
What is there any country that is recognizing that concept on the reverse?
Still not. There is a major debate. Yes,
major debate. Even in the West.
Even in the West.
Right. Okay. Now, what are the defenses that obviously anybody who's accused will take a defense. What are the defenses that you are a defense counsel?
Yeah.
You would put in a rape
First
case?
is identity. If it's an unknown man, definitely I would go on identity like light, and that kind of defense is the only defense available. But as I stressed on before, it will be the consent. That's a unique offense because that's where it's not only the accused mentality, but it is like the defense of consent is the crucial one.
How do is it possible for you, maybe without mentioning parties, walk us through an exemplary case which was interesting in your career?
Yeah, sure. Say a girl has run away from the parent because they have a stepmother, and she goes to the bus, and then bus driver takes her to the botanical gardens in the night. Now that is obvious that there is consent. Now when she was caught later, naturally in the family, she took up the defense that this man raped. So it is obvious that if you spent a night with an unknown man in quite a different botanical gardens, it is obviously it's consent. Now that's an extreme case,
right.
But even otherwise, the circumstances of a famous actor, where a girl walked into his home and wants a job and goes with that actor to a hotel, obviously that is rape, not rape.
Not rape.
Right, because you have to walk through the reception, you have to go to a room and then have sex with a condom, and that is obviously cannot be rape, basically. So those are the extreme cases, not extreme, but fairly factual cases that I could come up with.
Right. Now, do you find innocent people being accused of rape in your career and being penalized also?
Yes. Totally, it's about consent because I must say that there are lady judges,
Yes.
So they sometimes are biased, sometimes, I'm not stressing.
Yes.
They always believe that the girl is saying, so it's when it comes to consent, that will be the crucial element. The girl would always say, without consent. So that would be a tough call. So a man who had apparently consensual sex with a person may be found guilty, and especially after 95, which I can elaborate, there is a minimum sentence of 7 years. So he can be in jail with a minimum sentence, simply even after having sex with consent, because any girl or lady who is caught after the incident, even with consent, would always come up, because of a conservative nature, will always come up with allegation of rape. And again, if you want to attack a prominent person, you can always come up and make an allegation, and that's the worst thing a man could face in any society for that matter. A prominent person charged or alleged to have raped would be the most heinous crime, like more than murder, I say, Chanakya.
Now, in this Indian case of gang rape, Vidya's case, which you know,
yes.
It went to the Supreme Court, and they did give the proper judgment. There were schools of thoughts which we discussed in India, that the punishment for rape should be murder. Do you agree?
Yes.
And also, the other question is, what is the general punishment for accused here?
I do not agree, Chanakya, with the rape that you should be murder.
Exactly.
Because basically we have a concept called retribution,
yes.
life to life. So in that case, you are raped, you can't be, you should not be killed. But definitely, as I said before, our law in 95 made a dramatic change. And that is where, if it is a rape, there is a minimum of 7 years and a maximum of 20 years. So rape, and that's sufficient. And accordingly, there is very much a discussion of 7 years to 20 years. And it can be even 20 years. 20 years, almost a life. Almost a life. So if it's a heinous, grievous one, there is 20 years, which is sufficient. So therefore, and then 1995 amendment brought in a clause. Generally, in criminal law, you don't pay compensation. You have to go to civil court to get compensation. Yes. But 95 Act made a provision for the very unique provision that if you do, that you can get compensation from a rape to a rape victim, and otherwise if you don't pay compensation, that will be a jail term.
Further jail term.
Further jail term.
Right.
So now that is quite enough, because that is retribution and and restoration of the girl. So unlike any other offence, here we have. I don't agree that there should be a death sentence.
Yeah. Now, person who has put a rape complaint, can she withdraw it?
No.
She can't withdraw.
She can't withdraw, because that's actually criminal law is all about offence against the state, Chanakya.
Right,
And
right.
when you make a complaint, the police takes over. That's why the state council takes over.
Yeah.
So you cannot later withdraw a case. You are only a witness after that. Complainant and a witness.
Right. Now, have you heard of this concept called male rape?
Yes.
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, that's
And how
very interesting.
Yeah.
As I say, as you
Yeah.
introduced me, I lecture at the Columbia University.
Yeah.
So one day, the not backbenchers, the boys raised the question.
Yes.
So why not? Why can't a man rape a woman?
Yes.
So I said, hey, if the man is put on fear, obviously you may not have erection, and therefore you may not be able to rape. Then he said there are people who get pleasure from pain, and that is sadomasochism, and therefore why can't there be
a woman raping a man?
Woman raping a man. And they went to internet the following day, and then they brought in Africa there were 3 women. It's on internet who had raped a man. So the law has to change. I mean, not only Sri Lanka, entire world has to relook at this, where whether women can rape, because penetration is a vital one.
Yes.
So in rape, other ones you can have. For a woman by a man, grave sexual abuse, harassment, sexual harassment, you can. But rape, you need penetration. Now with fear, man may not be able to penetrate a girl.
Right. Now, in the present day law as it is in Sri Lanka, do you see any urgent changes needed?
To me, at the moment after 95, the law is very exhaustive. As you said, gang rape, right? It's minimum 15 years to 20 years. So minimum 20 years. And if the girl is mentally retarded, and 95, very interestingly brought in, like if the man made him intoxicated and he's an unsound mind, and the consent was got with that, still it is rape, right? And they brought in all these elements into it. So that protecting the girl has been exhaustively done in 1995. And gang rape, and with if you rape a girl below 18 years. Now, I like to stress, if it's a girl, earlier the law was that if you there was something called consensual sex of a statutory offence. Now, young girl can't be raped even with consent. Earlier it was 16. 1995 amendment brought it to 12. So we are now protecting many more young girls. Even with a consent, you cannot have sex with a very young girl. So we are it has brought down from 16 to 12 by 1995 amendment. And therefore we have done everything possible to protect young girls. We have made everything possible to protect like 18 years. Even if you rape a girl, it is minimum 15 years. And if it is like if a man who is in charge of a remand, a hospital rape, again minimum 15 years. So I think our law is very exhaustive. Practically only issue is generally a rape, Chanakya, takes about 15 years for a final trial. Now that is the sad part. Because by 15 years, sometimes the girl is married and she had to relive back again. And sometimes maybe husband may not like it. There may be big children. So I think we have to stop this law delay. And that is exactly, that's not something to do with law, but that's something how we should expedite the cases. And that is the answer, I think, only issue that I have as to the problems. Changes you need.
Okay. Prasabthalal, the Alwis President's Council, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for your insightful thoughts. And that's Law and Order for today. I will join you next week at the same time with another program on Law and Order. If you miss our programs, go to our website, channeli.lk, pick Law and Order from the drop-down menu, and you can watch our shows all over again. Have a good night and a good weekend. I'll see you next week.